Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me at your opening act at the casino. It has been on my bucket list for some time. And it is great to be able to spend the next couple of days with you. Corina, Styles, and Deb Cutter of my LA are in the house as well. Give them a hand. In her off time, Deb is quite the improvised artist, and I have it on good sources. There are still some role in space only available to her show tonight, so be sure to snatch them up. To get serious, though, Corina, Deb and I are thrilled to be here because, like you, independent living is in our DNA, and like you, we are looking forward to listening to, learning from, how it is said and done, and figuring out how we can build on much of what gets shared and discussed here. For those that missed it, yesterday's Youth Leadership Conference was simply amazing. To have many high school students and other young leaders with disabilities here all together in one place. It was a great start to this conference. One of the things I found most fascinating was a session on how so many of today's superheroes in the comics, on the web, and elsewhere have disabilities that propel them to create greater and more perfect justice for all. The same quest that unites and propels us all. Think about the effect that is having on the perceptions and possibilities of our youth. Young people revive and rev up that basic instinct and drive, so vital to equality of opportunity. Indeed, youth leadership has always been, and must be, the central driving force in all human and civil rights struggles, including the independent living and disability rights movements. Most of those who first pushed forward and demanded our equal rights were in their 20s and 30s, and many were still in high school and college when they tore down and broke free of the greatest barrier of all. Not just the kind made of concrete, but those born of bigotry and years of the self-doubt and the bias, discrimination, and bullying are intended to produce, replacing it all instead with pride and purpose in themselves, and even far more in each other, in the collective wisdom and power of our community. It was that tremendous pride and audacious shared purpose which made the nationwide 504 sit-ins that occurred in May 1977 not just possible, but absolutely inevitable. I was a senior in high school back then, and I and others of the 504 generation owe an enormous debt to those young leaders of the day like Don Galloway, Judy Newman, and others that said it, and through their actions created an accessible path to college, careers, the ADA, and life itself. It is a debt we try to pay forward on every day of our lives. And I know I speak for everyone here when I say to the leaders of the ADA generation with us today, we are thrilled and extremely proud that you are pushing forward and carrying on this legacy. We are proud as well as humbled too by the love insights, commitment, enthusiasm, and vision you bring to this conference, the independent living movement, and to our country. I remember the words of Justin Dart that he would certainly say to you if he were here. He would say, "We love you beyond words. We expect much of you, for you, as well as by you, and we are ready to follow."
Lead on.
April in Reno. Now that is something lyrical sounding. In fact, I think there was a song written about it. Something about chestnuts in blossom. Oh, I remember that was April in Paris. Really, perhaps, that would make for another great conference venue. No, that one in France. But in one of the mostly small towns named Paris in this country, like West Paris, Maine, population 1,722. Or better yet, Paris, Arkansas. Imagine the value added, the creativity, and the energy we would bring to those communities if we converge there en masse. This is the greatest combined power of independent living universally. And it is, I believe, the greatest overlooked and all too often underutilized strength, power, and promise of rural IL, both here in the United States as well as around the world, especially in developing nations. One of the first things I did when I took my position last January was to email Billy along with Kelly, and one thing I shared is that the central opportunity and obligation I believe we'll have over the next few years is that of ACL working together with the IL network and others too, develop and widely communicate a strong vision and business case for how and why we as a nation can and must continually invest in, build, strengthen, sustain, and expand the capacity and resources of independent living to starting the fire by increasing the freedom, independence and civic integration, rights and responsibilities, and the full opportunity of all people with significant disabilities to live and contribute to our families, communities, nation, and planet. Such a vision and business case needs to capture the great enabling diversity of the IL network nationwide and zero in especially on how and why we must expand the reach and the enabling powers of every Center for Independent Living and State Independent Living Council in every community. At the same time, however, I believe we are especially duty-bound, and our country is duty-bound to think deeply and to pursue the most effective and consumer-controlled ways of addressing the challenges and, most importantly, expanding the opportunities and supports of people with significant disabilities of all ages and circumstances who live in unserved and underserved communities across America, including those in the rural, frontier, tribal, diverse, disadvantaged, and in the inner city, because, as I think we all know, That is where our shared responsibilities, challenges, and opportunities are the greatest. Let me hit on 4 basic reasons why I believe this is essential to the work you are doing in particular. I want to say as well then, much of what I am about to say is based on the excellent research done by our good friends and colleagues at the Rural Institute in Montana. Reason 1. We know that children, women, and men with disabilities are, to use the language of demographers, significantly more likely to live in rural and other non-metropolitan areas. Reason 2. Fairly recent census data from 2008 to 2012 also reveals something we did not know. It has been long assumed that those who acquire a disability stay living where they were already living, or likely to move to more populated areas in order to be closer to and more able to obtain what they need. The recent census evidence suggests, however, that often the exact opposite occurs. That after becoming disabled, many individuals and their families pick up what they have and move to rural and other less densely populated communities for what is probably a very practical, extremely complicated mix of cost of living, family, and other factors. And as you know best, when these folks arrive, they are adrift, and their best chance of getting their lives back is connecting with the local Center for Independent Living, if one exists in the area. Many, if not most of us, have been in a similar place once or twice. We know what it is like. Once more, we know no one should have to face it alone, because we also know and have lived the power of peer control and the vital impact it has on taking charge of our lives and futures. Reason 3. We also know that regardless of how long they have lived there, that due to the geography, economics, and general lack of services and supports of where they live, people with disabilities of all ages and circumstances that live in rural communities face enormous, often impenetrable barriers to accessing the rights, opportunities, services, and supports they require to lead full, independent lives of their own choosing and direction. And reason 4. We know that both cities and councils in states where a large percentage of people live in rural and other small communities are frequently extremely under-resourced and stretched. Thankfully, this is not true everywhere, and we have much to learn from places that are exceptions on this front. But the fact is this: we know there are significant gaps in cell coverage across the United States. According to an analysis by the Rural Institute, based on the way we have collected data, it is impossible to determine how many of the roughly 3,200 counties in the nation do not have at least one Part B or Part C Center for Independent Living, providing services to people with disabilities living in them. We need to determine what that number is and devise ways to reduce it. Of equal, paramount importance, though, we need to make a compelling case for why and how the entire IL network needs to be resourced to successfully do the vital work independent living is meant to do. In my remarks at the NICL conference this July, I noted that in 2018, 2 years from now, we will mark two transformative events in disability history and of the nation. The first is the 1968 Quad Revolt led by Ed Roberts and the students with disabilities at Berkeley who refused to be institutionalized any longer in order to go to college, and the creation by Congress a decade later of what became the Federal Independent Living Program. I said, I believe the best way we have of remembering our history and the leaders and people that made today possible is by working together and doing the hard work of creating a better future. I also announced at Nickel that I plan to co-host with Lex Freedom and other IL leaders a series of critical conversations that can focus us all on where we have been, where we are today, and most importantly, where as a collective venture, independent living can and must move to over the next 5 to 10 years. I am especially grateful that with the support of Lex, Tim, Billy, and all of you, the first of these conversations will be held here on Sunday from 1:30 to 3 in, I believe, the Nevada room. I hope many of you will join us to celebrate and help build on our shared legacy. The session will consist of a representative panel of about 8 people at the conference who will share their diverse perspectives on what they believe are the crucial issues, challenges, and opportunities that we must rise to and address to improve and strengthen the future of independent living and the sustainability of the IL network. Lex, Tim, and Billy will co-lead the discussion, and there will be some time for those who the session to share your ideas and perspectives on the issues that get discussed, as well as those things you believe matters most and we need to grapple with and address effectively. Over time, I see my role as of ACL in this and the future critical conversations we had as very much of the active, engaged listener, one who learns from and understands the diverse and sometimes divergent points of view, perspectives, and interests we bring to the table. One who asks questions, probes, shares thoughts, pushes back occasionally, helps shape and participates. What I do not see, however, is a CL leading these kinds of conversations. It is not our role. It is for you to do. However, I believe strongly we do have a role and a responsibility to convene them. And as I said at the start of my remarks, to figure out with the network as well as others in the community how we can make the most of the collective ideas and wisdom generated from them to add to the value, strength, vitality, and sustainability of independent living for decades to come. To state the obvious, the critical conversations we begin Sunday are not a silver bullet. They will not produce quick and easy solutions or many kumbaya moments. In fact, if we do it well, the more practiced and deeper we become at talking through and grappling with certain issues, challenges, and opportunities we face, the more we will question all our values and principles because they are rock solid, but how we can best live up to them in the changing world of today and tomorrow. I believe these conversations are vital to clarifying and guiding the work we need to do together. Furthermore, I believe that what is now increasingly being referred to as conversational leadership or leadership by conversation in business and government has always been at the heart of independent living as a philosophy, culture, and movement. And so I believe that we at ACL have the fundamental responsibility and really the golden opportunity to engage and learn from all of you about how we can be the best stewards of Centers for Independent Living and state independent living councils. Let me be clear. We might not always agree on everything or see everything the same way. But what we can do and must get better at is to listening, learning, and acting on what the independent living community tells us. With this in mind, let me update you on several things we are and will be doing together with you. To start with, I am very pleased to be able to announce that we expect to soon issue the new regulations on how ACL will oversee and implement the changes brought about by Will to the Title VII Independent Living programs. Earlier this year, we received public comments from many of you and others on the NPRM published last fall. Based on what we received, I believe it is fair to say that while there were concerns raised about some of what we proposed, the majority of the comments we received on the NPRM were supportive of the direction we want to take. On issues on which differences or concerns were raised, we received. There were several comments and suggestions which we incorporated or addressed in some other way consistent with the statute. On balance, I believe the new rules will go far to advance the aims of the entire IL network. Of course, as with every set of regulations, I am certain some questions and concerns will exist once the rules become final. This is to be expected, and we are committed to continue to discuss and address them through guidance or other means. Once the rules are out, we will be offering technical assistance on what they mean and to answer your questions as well as get your feedback. Moving on. We have received and approved all state plans for independence living. Over the coming months, we will develop and post an infographic that provides an overview of what is in the plans nationwide that I think will be useful to silks and sills alike. We also got all of the FY16 grants out on time. I want to thank you and your staff for working with us and answering a slew of questions that enabled us to do this. Let me also say, I know there is still a number of questions, concerns, and uncertainties about how things ended up. We have previously put out information explaining some of the decisions we make at ACL and why we make them, but this was done in a series of correspondence. And what I think we will now do is lay it all out in a single message. In the coming weeks, as you all probably know, a short-term continuing resolution was passed to fund the government through December 9th. After that, the Congress will decide what to do next. Hashtag stay tuned. I want to now mention that earlier this week, I sent out a message announcing that for a number of security, performance, accessibility, and efficiency issues, We are not going to use the MIS system any longer for 704 reporting or anything else. We are standing up the ACL reporting system to permanently take its place. Throughout November, we will provide about 15 virtual training events for small groups up till to learn how to use it. Centers will then have from the beginning of December to the end of January to enter your 704 data. We are committed to making this go as easy and smoothly as possible, but I need you to do a couple of things to help make that happen. The first is to enter your data well before the January 31st deadline. And the second is to let us know if you have questions or problems using the tool as soon as you have them, so that we can respond as quickly and effectively as possible. I also want you to know that in the next month or two, we will be hosting one or more virtual listening sessions on changes we believe should be made to 704 Part 2. We will consider your feedback and make appropriate changes. After that, we will put the changes into the formal clearance process, which will also include a 60-day comment period. We are hopeful that this can all be done so the revisions are made for use by fiscal year 18. I think, though, given changes in administration, that is quite optimistic. Finally, we are wrapping up an year-long internal review of how we should carry out our on-site and related stewardship efforts. And we will be sharing and seeking your feedback on our findings and proposed approaches shortly. With that, if there's time, I would be glad to take questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wanted to comment on one piece that you were talking about. Whenever I look back at the history of the IL movement, I love looking at those old photos. There's some great photos out there of the movement. And one of the things that always stands out to me when I look at those photos, those people are young. It is a youth movement. Almost every civil rights movement has a very strong youth component. And I could not be more proud of the youth that we have in this room here, because they are definitely leading the way. So thank you for mentioning that. As Bob said, he'll take some questions and comments. John Nosane from the great state of Wisconsin back there. Apparently I'm through talking.
Hi there, I'm John Nosane. I'm from North Country Independent Living. And this is really more of a statement than a question. I just want to thank ACL for recognizing the extreme need that we have in Indian country with the Native American IL demonstration grant. Now time for the shameless plug. North Country was fortunate enough to get one of those grants, and we are going to be hiring staff to work directly in our 4 tribal communities of Bad River, Red Cliff, Lakota Ray, and St. Croix in beautiful northwestern Wisconsin. And our hope is to be able to continue the project after the 3 years, so I need staff. And I need people that are comfortable at 2 campfires. The Native American campfire and the IL campfire. So if there's anybody here, if you know of anybody that wants to learn more about that project, and I'm telling you, northwestern Wisconsin, beautiful place to live. Come and see me. Thank you very much.
John, she was puppy. If you put your hands in the air, then I can see that you have a question.
Wait.
Gonna get my work out.
Hi, Bob. I'm Tink Miller. I'm Executive Director of Placer Independent Resource Services in California, about 100 miles west of here, also very rural Sierra Mountains. To your point about the 3,200 counties that do not have centers, I have advocated, and my board has advocated for many, many years, that new funding that comes along should not only be allowed for new centers, but also for forming branches or satellites of existing centers, which is much more cost effective. So I hope that whatever effort ACL might make toward Congress and new funding, that kind of language could be included so that you don't have to form a new center to serve another county in your service area.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Me.
I'm Kim Gibson from Disability Link.
Hold on.
Clarify. The 32,000 number is the total counties in the United States all together. Let me clarify, the 32,000 number is the total counties in the United States altogether.
Yeah. We had another question?
All right, I'm Kim Gibson from Disability Link in Metro Atlanta, and I kind of want to piggyback on what Tink Miller said, and that is when we're looking at funding and looking at trying to cover the states and such, but we also need to look at what funding the centers are already not getting and increasing that. I know for us, we have continually, we actually have less funding than what we did when we basically started. And so, and now we have a fifth core service that appears like, and it appears like a lot of that transitional funding is sent out to other agencies other than Centers for Independent Living, and instead of sent to the organizations that are charged with doing that fifth core service, and probably have been doing it all along anyways, and we've been squeezing the money. So when you're taking a look at that, not only the satellites, but opening up new centers, I'm totally in agreement with Tink with administratively it makes more sense for satellite offices, but also taking a look at the budgets that we're already not having in our centers. I know that I'm embarrassed to say that we have to pay people with disabilities less than what the rest of the world makes, just due to the fact that if we want to provide all the five core services in a quality manner, we have to pay people lower so that we have more staff. Otherwise, it just doesn't happen. So just want to keep that in mind.
Okay. Hi, Bob. I'm Julie Shaw from Florida in a rural CIL, Disability Solutions. And I was really excited about the IL movement moving to ACL. But I think there needs to be better work with HHS, especially in the 1115 waivers they're approving or renewing for managed care. And it doesn't appear to me that, for instance, in Florida, we have a total glitch with HHS. They're approving 1115 waivers for managed care, but our Medicaid agency has blocked, the process has blocked all CILs in Florida from doing nursing home transition. And I'm depending on the IL section of ACL to talk to HHS about those waivers they're approving, because we were approved for all the services initially, our CILs were, but they hand everything over to the managed care companies, and then the managed care companies want to keep as much profit in-house so they don't subcontract with Centers for Independent Living. And that was never the intent of the original 1115s that were authorized. And I don't think HHS is realizing that. And I want to ask you all to please convey that and to make sure that they're including Centers for Independent Living in that 5th core service if it's provided under managed care. Thank you.
Any more thoughts or questions?
2 points on that. So 2 points on that. First, if there is a managed care or any other policy issue or barrier to what sales need to do. Let us know so we can elevate it and second we have a strong policy sharp and ACL that wants to work on these very concerns. First, if there is a managed care or any other policy issue or barrier to what sales need to do, let us know so we can elevate it. And second, we have a strong policy shop and ACL that wants to work on these very concerns.
Yeah. Becky, any other questions? Oh, I see one. Jim Baker, way up there.
Hi, I'm Jim Baker. I'm with the Florida Independent Living Council, and one of the comments I'd like to make is that it was a really great process in our state, going through our state, getting our state plan written, really cooperative between the centers, the council, and the DSE, and then getting that back approved was a real thrill to us in such a timely manner. But one of the things that we're facing right now, and I'm hearing this in other states as well with their silks, is that getting the governor to make appointees to the council. We are down to 4 members right now, and to carry out that plan, you know, I mean, we've had a couple of hurricanes, and so that does take his attention, and rightly so. But at the same time, we know that it doesn't take that long to make appointments. So, you know, what can ACL do to help us as states to get the governors to make those appointments so that we can actually carry out those plans?
No.
So, I do not have a quick answer to that. But I think for one thing, it might be good for us to have a call with the councils as well as the DSE to identify the best approaches we have written letters in the past with varying levels of succeed success. So I do not have a quick answer to that, but I think for one thing it might be good for us to have a call with the councils as well as the DSE to identify the best approaches. We have written letters in the past with varying levels of success.
Take one more about this, all right?
Yeah.
Last question. All right, so bring the mic up.
Thank you, everybody. Let's give a great round of applause for Mr. Bob Williams.